Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ray Krone, K-R-O-N-E. And I consider it a great honor, a great privilege. I consider myself very fortunate to be here because I'm a death row survivor. At one time, I was sentenced to death in Arizona. And I'm well aware of the time restraints, so I only have a few minutes to tell you about the 10 years that I spent fighting for my life, my liberty, my freedom, and my family that fought with me. If I had time, I'd like to tell you about my background, growing up in South Central Pennsylvania, a small agricultural town, about my time in the Boy Scouts, my time in the church choir, my time in the Little League, graduating the top 10% of my high school class. I'd like to tell you about the 6 years I spent in the U.S. Air Force out of high school, the 7 years I spent with the U.S. Post Office after I got out of the service. But what I really have to talk about is what I learned about the death penalty, something I used to support, something I used to believe in. I found out I had an opinion that was a mile wide and an inch deep because I didn't know what I was believing in. Because see, the day came when I was arrested for a murder that I had nothing to do with. And because I'd never been in trouble, I had nothing to worry about. I was home in bed, had a roommate that knew I was home in bed. I took whatever attorney they gave me, a court-appointed attorney that was granted $5,000 to defend me. You can't even get divorced for $5,000. And I got what they paid for. I got represented, very poor representation. Got asked to take a plea bargain. Refused it. Within just 7 months, I'm on trial for that murder. And because there was fingerprints and footprints and hair that didn't really match me, they got a bite mark expert. In that 3-day trial, I was convicted based on that expert's testimony that marks in the body matched my teeth, that my teeth were unique, and that that bite mark happened at that time of the murder. That made me, Ray Krone, the murderer. And during the sentencing phase, when I had to go before the judge and I was to show remorse, I was to show regret, I was to show mitigating factors. How do you mitigate something you didn't do? How do you show remorse or regret for an act you never committed? I told the judge, you have the wrong person. And that prosecutor called me a horrible, cold-blooded murderer with no remorse. And so I was bound up in chains and sent to death row. Fortunately for me, the prosecutor had committed a few errors. Eventually my case was overturned by the Arizona Supreme Court because of prosecutor misconduct. By now, they'd executed over half a dozen people in the state of Arizona, people that I knew. I knew the state could and would execute you and didn't care about the truth, didn't care if you were innocent. And my family mortgaged their homes, cashed in their retirement funds. Friends and family members got together and got enough money up that I could hire a good attorney. My second trial lasted 6.5 weeks, over 500 exhibits, over 30 experts testified. 3 bite mark experts testified for the defense alone. My family came out and sat through that trial. And the truth was coming out. I was very proud to be there. I was very proud of our system because I still believed in that system. DNA off that bite mark that I'm supposed to make did not match me. At the end of that trial, that prosecutor told the jury to ignore that DNA evidence. That's easy to explain. It was just transferred there by accident by somebody else. And that jury came back and found me guilty again. And as bad as it was that first time being sentenced to death, being charged with guilt of a murder you never committed, it wasn't nowhere near as horrible, gut-wrenching, mind-numbing pain that I felt when that verdict was announced and hear the horrible moan, the scream from my mom and sister sitting 5 feet behind me in that courtroom. And I look over the jury and I see them wiping the tears out of their eyes. And the bailiff can't hardly read the verdict. And my attorney's hanging on my shoulder saying, I can't believe it, it's not over yet, I'll fight with you to the end. And I look over to the prosecution side and they're jumping up and down, high-fiving it like they just won a big ball game. I still believed in that system. And this time the judge ruled that there was lingering doubt of my guilt. He wasn't sure that I did it. So he sentenced me to life instead. And for the next years, I've seen people be released because of DNA, and I kind of had mixed emotions. I said, well, that could be me one day because I'm innocent too. And then on the other hand, I looked at it and said, yeah, a lot of good DNA did for me. And then thankfully in 2000, the Arizona state legislatures passed a new law making it easier for inmates to request DNA testing, make it easier to have access to the courts to have DNA testing done. We petitioned the courts to do that DNA testing. Fortunately for me, the police department in Phoenix, Arizona had kept the victim's pants and underwear. And they extracted DNA from the pants and that underwear. And they compared it to me and it wasn't me, and they compared it to the victim and it wasn't the victim. And God bless this overachiever there at the crime lab because he took that DNA sample and he put that in the nationwide DNA data bank. And it came back with a match. A match to a man that had a history of sexual assaults against women and children. And finally, after 10 years, 3 months, and 8 days, I got my freedom back. I got my justice. My family got that justice. But it's pure luck. The number of circumstantial, just the number of fortunate lucky breaks that we had to get to ever prove my innocence, to ever have the chance, the opportunity to address you, is scary, it's frightening. For somebody who believed in the system, somebody who believed in the death penalty, I can't support it, I can't believe in it anymore. And I'll tell you this, when somebody's executed, they say they executed in the name of all the people in that state, all the citizens. That blood would be on our hands. I know what it's like to be called a murderer. I know what it's like to feel like a murderer. I don't want that blood on my hands. And you members have an opportunity now to see that injustice, that blood, that sense of guilt can never fall and never happen in this great state of Montana. I encourage you to review this issue, look into it. Don't just take my testimony, the other testimonies. Research it yourself. I do believe this. I do believe you'll come to the right conclusion and see that we've made a mistake for a long time, and you can and do have the opportunity now to correct it. Thank you.